I was part of it.
The thing that will never be replaced is the feeling of history at Harmon. It's been quite a few years since I played there, but that history is nothing compared to what went on prior to my playing. And you could feel that in Harmon. You could sense it and almost see it, you know, off the floorboards and you know, reverberating off those ceilings, and you know, the windows that manually opened up, and that feeling, that it almost there's an aura around it that that will not be able to be replaced, and I'll miss it. I'll miss it. I come back to Harmon for games or to walk around when I'm on campus, and it's a place I belong.
Harmon was a great place to play. In fact, even opposing teams that weren't in the Pac-10, if they only played one game against Cal, it was in Harmon, the first thing that they would say to me when I saw them after that, 5 years later, 10 years later, they'd always say, I hated that little gym. The fans, the student body were right over the court hovering. You could hear them whispering and talking, and it was just some of the greatest moments that I've ever had playing. And the great thing about Harmon Gym was the fact that it was so intimate and so volatile. I mean, the fans were unbelievable.
I mean, getting just the fan support I got when senior day last year, just having everybody there for me, cheering for me, even though I didn't play for just 2 minutes. And afterwards, I got this big, card that everybody in Harmon signed. And I mean, that was real special to me, and I think that sticks out more than anything. Like I said, I mean, the gym has been great to us, the fans have been great to us, and I'm gonna miss playing in this tiny gym, because I mean, it has so many memories. But I think the last game we had here last year was probably the most memorable.
One of my fondest memories was being able to guard Rayford Johnson, and tremendous athlete. I mean, doesn't know what I'm saying, but the opportunity of having to be able to play before your own fans against the greatest athlete in the world, you know, was something that I will never forget. How strong he was, how high he could jump, yet that, based on that tutelage of Coach Newell, that we could offset all of that tremendous talent. But in my mind, that was one of the highlights of my career in playing here, and just having the opportunity to say that, you know, I played against him.
Well, we were playing, I believe we were playing against either SC or UCLA, and one of my teammates went down the lane and made a great play, and instead of the place going nuts as we were running down the floor, because it was late in the game, it was a close game, the whole place was just erupted in laughter. And at the next time out, we all asked what happened, and when he drove in, he ended up in the stands and knocked a lady's wig off, and she tried to put it back on and couldn't get it on. I guess the place just went nuts, and then the Straw Hat Band just was on her for the rest of the game because she was an opponent fan. So it was pretty funny.
My dad went to Cal, and when I told him that I was going to go to UCLA and play basketball, it just broke his heart, because he had told us our whole lives growing up as kids about the greatness of Cal Berkeley, and the whole time they were there cheering on the team and throwing the fish on the floor and the spirit of the team. It was just such a special place. One time as a broadcaster, after I stopped playing, I went back, I was broadcasting a UCLA Berkeley game high up above in the rafters, calling the game down on the court. And my dad, I took my dad with him because he's such a Cal loyalist. And he was yelling and screaming for the Berkeley Bears so bad that the director, there right on stage, he had to turn around and tell my dad, Mr. Walton, will you please shut up so we can get our work done?
My favorite moments at Harmon, Jack Diddy is an official who you may want to interview. He did hundreds of games at Harmon. His son now is an official in our league. I'm watching Cal play San Jose State, and I think I'm coaching in high school at the time. And Connie White is playing for Cal, and Kobe Dietrich for San Jose State. And Kobe scores a basket just before the final buzzer. Cal has no timeouts left. They get the ball in bounds. They fly it up the floor. Connie White lets go at the top of the key. They're down by one, it swishes through, but they don't win the game because you couldn't hear the horn, but the red light behind the backboard, and I was seated at the other end, and the official made the correct call. The red light did go on before Connie let go of the ball. And Jack Diddy's the trail official making the call, the basket doesn't count. And he is running out the hallway at Harmon, down to the locker room, backpedaling, signaling no basket as Dick Edwards is chasing him across the floor down the hall. And I remember that is one of the great things I'd ever seen at Harmon. Diddy's ability to make that call and still protect himself as he headed down to the locker room. Jack told me later on, Dick Edwards called him the next day and said it was the right call. But, and Jack and I have talked about that since I returned to this area. But those things don't happen in the large facilities because you got all this space around you. But Jack had to get the heck out of that arena because it wasn't just Dick Edwards who was going to chase him down that locker room.
Bottom line is that Al told me personally he made a mistake. He said that wherever he went the rest of the year, he said he'd never do it again, but he said they turned around and hit us with pennies the whole year. It didn't really stop it because a couple of years later they had to take the mic again and the crowd was still throwing them. So outside of the hot pennies, and another incident one night was a dead duck thrown at one of our officials out on the floor. So Cal is an interesting place to officiate.
A lot of funny things happen on that court. I can remember Gooch Foster. I really thought that after every game, they're going to have to repolish the floor because Gooch would always stomp and kick on the sideline. I just knew she was going to slip one day and fall. And we would always anticipate that, whether it be hollering at us or hollering at the referees. But that's just the intensity she had in the game. And you know, her emotions were high also. So we always look for scratch marks and scuff marks by the coach's bench.
One of the funniest things that ever happened in Harmon is, I say, the crowd is so close to you that you can hear every word that everyone's saying. They can hear every word I'm saying. And I usually didn't pay any attention to people, but there was one night right up behind me, this guy was just on me the entire game in Harmon, my own gym, and we actually were winning. But he really, really wanted me to do something. I don't know, call timeout or do whatever, so I just finally got up, walked up the stairs and said, you go down and take my place, you're doing a much better job than I am. And poor guy, I think he almost died, you know, but it's just things like that you remember. You know, a thousand memories come through my mind about Harmon. I'm thrilled for the new Hospice Pavilion. I think it's long overdue, but I'm glad that I got to be a part of the Harmon tradition.